Hey everyone. So I wanted to make a quick video on how to successfully lose and learn from it. So today I ended up taking a loss and two break evens, and I did go back and look at the PA after to see what I did wrong, what I did right. There was a few things I found. For the most part, I managed risk, so it wasn't the end of the world. I'm okay with it, but I also didn't have to lose if I got a little more diligent with my rules. So we're currently unconfirmed bullish on the 15 minute. Um, and as of right now, we are currently tapping into a POI of mine. I'm just going to show you guys the first loss here. And once the first loss happens here, we'll go into some detail of what could have been done different. And I want to show you the higher time frame. And don't mind my dog; he's keeping us safe. But he rocks. Um, anyway, we had taken a trade off of this area. He's really good at his job. He likes to protect the house, keep us all safe, which is always good. All right, buddy, go lay down. You're good. Okay. So anyway, I ended up tapping in here. There wasn't even much of a reaction. I ended up just losing this right away. Now, usually, we're fortunate enough to get a bit of a reaction and I can break even, which is obviously not what happened here. Now, if we just play this a little further, so you can see here we was below my demand, which was one of the things that had me looking at things different. So when I got to the charts this morning, I viewed two things. One, this was the last demand, and this supply here happened to be the supply that flipped that demand. Now, this is not important right now, but it will be in a little bit. Also, we have a breaker block here, which we're just going to pull across as an arrow so I don't have to stare at another supply zone, and just call that a key level. Okay, cool. Now I want you to make note right here. This wick clearly went below, so this to me was a disrespect of a zone. Now, something I like to do is not use a zone if it's been tapped 3 times or more. Which is kind of a bit of a subjective rule. So what I found in some further analysis with this rule is that if a POI has been tapped 3 times, it's a lot less likely to hold and give you a big trade. But for the most part, I partial out heavy at 5R. So I'm not looking for big enough of a trade that this should have discouraged me from taking the next trade, which I'll show you in a sec. But yeah, let's get into that. So right now we have a long idea from here and a short idea from here. And this is kind of our breaker block. Since there was no reaction, the candle came right through it. And then we also have a 30-minute supply, which we don't currently need. I'll pull it in a bit. But that's my ideas. Now, keep an eye on this 15 supply as it's going to become important in a bit here. Anyway, let's go back to my execution time frame I was using today. So that was our first loss. Now here I told myself I was just gonna let the market breathe, and I had married the idea that I'm not gonna take another trade off this POI because it's been tapped too many times. We wicked below it, which is a disrespect of a zone. And up here we have a flip zone, which I want to sell from. So in the moment, I was obviously, everything I had talked about kind of was going through my head. But now, if we just play the PA forward here, I can play it forward a little faster. So I believe right here, it chalks right here, and so you get a sweep of the lows, and straighten that out a bit. So we got a sweep of the lows, and we got a sweep of the highs here. So that is a chalk complete. And we'll chalk top. Cool. So I had seen this entry. I decided to sit this out because of this wicking below, and I thought the zone was getting disrespected. However, so this right off the bat was a mistake, because even my next idea I had was selling from this since the trend's not confirmed, and this was the flip zone. So the only way I could really sell off this is if price actually makes it back there. However, I was a little bit not focused on that at the time, and I didn't end up executing this trade. This one, of course, went 5R, no problem. Unfortunately, I wasn't in it. So right after this tapped you in, and it does get going, we actually get another flip zone. And for whatever reason, I still decided not to take this because in my mind I was like, I don't want to trade off this POI because it's just not as high probability to me. Now here we have a range. Now here we have a range. Generally, if I put a limit in, I put a limit in on the bottom 2 pips. This being the next flip zone here. This was another entry here. This is an entry here. Both ended up going to 5R. These were the 2 trades I did not take. So at this point here, this loan here would have almost hit our 5R already. And this guy here wouldn't tap us in yet. And I just want to show these as opportunities. I didn't take these ones, of course. All right. So these were kind of the... So this one didn't get tapped in. The bottom one's going. You break even on it at this point. So this first one here hit TP at 5R. Now these are not the best price, and with the POI being tapped so many times, I probably wouldn't look for more than 5R. And that was one of my analysis about taking these losses after the fact that we're going to talk about after I show you guys all my trades. Because the idea is that you want to learn from your losses, and this one does tap you in, and I'll just leave it off to the side here. And that one also runs 5R. Now, something I want to make note here. So the way I was viewing the market is we had chalk down here. The trend's not confirmed. Because we had chalk down up here and we have this flip zone, we took the highs here, broke this demand, so that's a chalk to me. We disrespected a zone here. It hasn't done it yet. We'll come back to the 10-minute when it does it. But I actually try to sell next, and I'll show you why. There's higher time frame intention behind it. So this taps us in, and it also hit 5R. Now, this line here is kind of the body of the breaker block. So we are currently in that breaker block, which is a supply zone more or less. I'm going to play price forward. So we did react off of it. Here we go down. So right here, we had gone below this low. And we're just going to call that a 15-minute key level. Now, with the 15-minute key level, what it actually is it is a 10-minute chalk. So now, if we just look what we have here, we had a sweep of the highs, and then we had a sweep of the lows. So another demand got disrespected. So at this point, I looked at this point and I was thinking to myself, okay, well, this demand just got disrespected. This breaker block's getting respected, and we had just disrespected another demand zone. So at this point here, I had thought we're shortened down to the unmitigated POI below, and we're not even going to make it to my initial flip zone. And so at this point, I decided to take a short from this supply zone up here. And this demand that we're in, to me, is pretty weak at this point, as it's been tapped a bunch of times. You'll laugh at me by the end of the video because it actually ends up holding. So right here, we come into it. Now this one here I broke even on, so I don't feel as bad about it, but you know, it kind of hurts still. All right, so we entered a sell somewhere around here. So I put a limit in here, I believe. And the same thing again, we get our 30-second chalk. And we'll just play that forward. So that taps me in quite nicely. It gets going. So I went break even here. Price ends up coming back and actually taking, making me hit break even. Now, what I want to point out here at this point is, for those of you that are paying attention, when this had happened, I put all my focus on this sell, but our trend is actually unconfirmed bullish on the 15 and confirmed bullish on the 4-hour. And I had completely missed this buy. So that was one of my things I went back and found after. And I had seen this playing out, but to me, two demands have been disrespected. And I was at this point sold on taking sells. So, so this one went about 3R in profit and then kind of come back and took me out. And also, what you're gonna notice is while I was so focused on sells, this one also ran to target. So at this point, you could have already been 15R between these three trades. This one here wasn't really an avoidable loss. It's within the trade plan. I'm not taking these, a little dumb on my part. Completely missed this at the time because I was focused on the sell. So that was one of my mistakes there. And although the sell here isn't, it's not a horrible plan because we did flip a demand and we did ultimately disrespect another demand. The sell wasn't completely wrong. However, the initial sell, the initial flip zone was this area here. And that should have been what I was waiting for had I been looking at this correct. Now at this point here, I believe I stayed out of the market for a little bit as Powell is due to speak here right away. So at this point, let's see. All right. And the other thing we have here too at this point here, hold on, we'll just let Powell talk. So I believe this is Powell's speech about to begin soon here. All right, so one of the things we also have here now is we actually have another demand zone. Now I don't love this demand zone because it didn't do a whole lot, but I guess it kind of took out some substructure here. But I'm gonna pull it as a demand nonetheless. And this one here kind of threw me a bit too because another demand got disrespected once again, but the original demand we were in just kept on holding. Oh yeah, one other thing I want to mention too is why I was sell biased today. I was looking at all of this trend line liquidity that was getting built up, and to me, I really thought they were going to do something like this. Or the second idea was they're going to do something like this. And I was really looking at this trend line liquidity to target. And as it started developing, I became even more sell biased. However, here we swept the lows and we swept the highs. And at this point, I was like, okay, well, we swept this and we just swept the highs. So now supply got disrespected. I was like, okay. At this point, I am open to another buy. And I still want to sell from up here as well. All right, so, oops, let's just get rid of that. All right, now, okay, so this had came down, swept liquidity. It's going up. Right now, I don't really have a trade, but what we did have at this point is, so I got rid of this demand and I actually refined us to here. The reason I did that is that's kind of the last demand that gave us a sweep above that. And this is technically mitigated now. Now, I believe I had it pulled wick to wick on the 10-minute here. And, oh yeah, just before we forget here, so I prefer the bodies. So usually I pull demands body to bottom of wick, but I end up sort of been pulling wick to wick lately, just kind of watching the reactions. Most of the time it does come to the body. That is where the volume's the heaviest because that's where it closed. So anyway, we'll play price forward here. And all right, so here we had just come into my body. This is where volume's heaviest. At this point, I got another chalk and flip right here when this little supply broke. I'm just gonna delete that. All right, so now what we have here is another area to get in. So this one I tapped this in. So I ended up taking this. Now, with my management plan, I need a 1M boss to break even. However, this is Oanda. Oanda doesn't do it. The only thing that saved me on this from losing is on here, it becomes equals. On my broker on MT4, it actually broke that with a wick up above. So I went break even here, which was a really good thing. I looked at my broker. So from a management perspective, so I wouldn't break even on this on TradingView because I need to break that high. Like I said, luckily MT4 did break that. So I did go break even and I didn't have to eat this loss. So that one was good from a management perspective. At this point, I told myself I did not like the PA and I don't really care anymore. I'm not trading. However, there was another chalk right here. So right here, we get another chalk when this little candle gets run. And I had watched this play out. And at this point, I told myself, you know what? I don't like this PA. I'm just kind of sitting the rest of the day out. And you can probably already guess what happens. This one runs to target. So this one ran to target without me quite nicely. There was also another entry on this flip zone that tapped you in here, which I'd also seen, but at this point I was at a loss and 2 break evens. I didn't end up taking any more of these. I was a little bit pissed off, but basically the trades I took all broke even and lost, and every other one I seen today did go. And a couple of things went wrong on my end. One was I married the bias that I shouldn't be looking at trades down here because it had disrespected. And at this point, this demand has been tapped too many times. I shouldn't take a trade, which in a lot of cases is true. It won't hold. However, we're not looking for a 100R here. We're just looking for, quick 5Rs. And anytime I'm in a sketchy area, 5R usually goes to TP. Now, the other thing I want to show you guys, and this is something I noticed after as well when I was assessing my losses. So, I had pulled this zone here. Now, if you really want to get technical and you started checking this on the higher time frame, there's one of two things you'll notice here. One, this actually could have been used as a sort of liquidity. And two, if we went to something higher time frame, you would have expanded this into this demand, and now just by going to a higher time frame, and to me it's the candle before momentum. Now if you get a little bit of a range like this, it's just best to pull the whole area. So now if you look at my mistakes, one of the two things you'll notice is, again, liquidity, and we actually never came below this demand at that point. Just from having my demand in the wrong area, I also started getting wrong biases, and it's a little bit of a bummer. Now, something I did analyze that I was speaking about earlier is this is all trend line liquidity, and it's likely there for the taking. Let's actually observe exactly what happens. And there's the flip zone I wanted to trade off of. At this point, I wasn't in the market anymore, obviously. And basically, look what happens when it hits that flip zone. So here we get our higher time frame chalk, and ultimately, it just tanks off there, and it runs all the trend line liquidity. So, one of the things that was done wrong today was I pulled a POI not big enough, and right away I started mirroring a bias that this had broken it, when in fact it had not broken the POI had I gone one time frame up, and it just took inducement. I had told myself that it's building trendline liquidity for the taking, which it was, and it did take it. But I had also told myself that I only want to short from here, and for whatever reason, I decided to take that short earlier. Now, the management perspective was good. I only took one loss and two break evens. Thank God for me looking to MT4 and being as aggressive as I am on management. But the very first thing I noticed when I sat down at the chart was this flip zone. And often when we sit down, the very first thing we see for a POI or a trade idea we get ends up playing out. The next thing I noticed was this trend line, which it did end up taking. And there was also a couple of hesitations on my part today. Now, within my trade plan, I won't take more than 3 losses. I am willing to go to 5 trades in a day, but the conditions are I can't lose more than 3. So if I am to take 5 trades in a day, it usually means I had at least 1 win, or most of my losses weren't losses, they were just break evens. So today I had 2 break evens and 1 loss. I ended up calling it a day. It was within my plan to take 2 more trades, and literally every other trade I laid out today went to target. It was just one of those days. However, going back and reviewing this, had I pulled this POI correct, and had I realized this is also a half-hour POI rather than a 15-minute POI that's been tapped too many times, it's also a 1-hour POI, and the higher time frame they go, the stronger they are. So once you go to half-hour and 1 hour, generally a POI does survive more than 3 taps. So my number one mistake was not executing these 2 trades because I had the POI pulled wrong, because I thought it came below, when in fact it had not. It had just grabbed liquidity. So if we go back and study that, within my trade plan too, if I knock 2 trades off, I quit trading. So it would have been 1 loss and 2 5 Rs, and my trading day ultimately would have ended. Um, and had I also looked at this and I had that POI pulled wrong, this wouldn't have been a thing, and I wouldn't have even looked for this sell, and we would have been in this buy as well. So just a couple of little mistakes today. The management perspective was good again, but it's a really good idea to go back and look at what you did wrong, look at what you did right. And what I do is I take screenshots of this stuff and save it. And then I keep a little handwritten journal too. And I do the exact same thing on the journal. I write what I did good, what I didn't do good. And on my part, there was a couple of hesitations. The POI was pulled wrong, married a bias, and ultimately, even this sell, the pricing wasn't the best for a sell. My original sell idea was from this original flip zone, and it did end up tapping you in past my trading hours, so I wouldn't have been in it anyway. But the point is, just a couple of things done wrong, and yeah, it's as simple as that, guys. You didn't pull your POI far enough, you didn't scroll through time frames, and rather than looking at something as a run on liquidity to fuel the move the other direction, I had married the bias, said we broke that and it's going down now. Very simple mistakes, but the point is I went back and I analyzed today and I figured out what I did wrong so that this happens less in the future. And I do this with all my losses as much as I can. And a lot of the days I can find a silly mistake I made. Some days the market just beats me, and it is what it is. Today the market didn't have to beat me. I didn't miss one of these trades in the moment. I had married biases. I had POIs pulled wrong, so ultimately I paid the price. I literally had magic keys ready to execute every one of these, but I had talked myself out of every one of them. So don't marry biases, pull your POIs right. And the last thing I want to mention, and this is a big one, is whether it's a bullish market or a bearish market, have a buy and a sell scenario ready to go just in case you're on the wrong side of it. If, let's say, all the buys were failing today, I need to know where I can sell from. What's the sell scenario? And that scenario needs to be in your head before you start trading. And just by doing that, you can at least be ready and anticipate what's going to happen. So just to give you a quick example and tell you guys what I'm actually talking about. So I had a sell scenario lined up from this flip zone. Now, had we not made this flip zone and we just went through this supply here, I would have likely found a supply here as well. That's also a flip, and looked for a further push down maybe. Or I turn around and wait for a chalk and go back the other way. Obviously, that's not all happening in New York, but the point is the scenario needs to be in your head, ready to go, so that if it plays out, you know how to react. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to subscribe. Have a great day, everyone.